Hey YouTube, it's your friendly neighborhood Spiderman with another video. This one's just on topic of Spiderman web shooters. As you can see right here, I already did a blueprint of a simple pressure release valve web shooter. And what this does is that this button right here is connected to a 9-volt battery, which that 9-volt battery is then connected to this turbine, which then goes right back up to the trigger. And usually, what you would assume is you push the button and the turbine is end up being charged by the 9-volt battery. Then it later ends up spinning or something. But what I'm thinking about is attaching some sort of steel cable or some sort of fishing wire onto there that will come from the inside of the web shooter all the way to the outside. And what it's going to be tugging would be the pressure release ball. There should be like a washer and spring in there to block it to make sure that it doesn't fall out. But then yet you can also, whenever you squeeze it, it will release air and also fluid if it works properly. You can make like different models or different versions. Haven't made a single web shooter ever, and I'm just coming with a blueprint so I don't screw up. And so you would have to pressurize the cartridge through the nozzle, but the nozzle can't be a cone shape like this. This is like a tip of a pen. It has to be something like a cylinder shape, because when it's a cylinder shape, you can easily put a bike pressure thingy, like a bike tire, bike pump thing on there, whatever they're called. And basically, it just wraps around there when you just try to pressurize it, and then all of a sudden, you just add CO2. And then basically, the pressure would go down. And then since you're going to have a piece of acrylic tubing that goes all the way up to the nozzle, that acrylic tubing is also going to have to be attached to the cartridge somehow, but also you need to replace the cartridge. So I'm thinking that you have some sort of cone shape, kind of like, hold on, put this down real quick, sorry about that. This will only take a couple seconds. There we go. You would have like some sort of shape like that. That's on top of a Gorilla Glue bottle. I'm not saying use a Gorilla Glue bottle, I'm just saying just some sort of shape like the very top of that. So then you can easily slide the acrylic tubing on top without it leaking any pressure or any fluid. And so what you have to do first is put fluid inside the cartridge and then you pressurize it. So it will be divided like the fluid with the pressure. You would have other cartridges over here, but that's a comic book style. But with the new Tom Holland style, you'd have the base of the web shooter, and then what he did was he had these two simple cartridges with the two different types of chemicals that when combined it equals a fluid. And he did some sort of like a Y shape acrylic tubing that connects to the very bottom. Just mark it out. And then it's connected to some sort of joint. Then it goes up to another piece of acrylic tubing. And then it just branches off these little fork things, which little forks are supposed to be like when you look really up close to a needle or a syringe on an allergy shot, they would look like that. And his just shot out like tiny little strands. But there'd also have to be some sort of turbine right down here. Then it's getting connected to a turbine right there. So you probably have to extend it. And then also in the middle somewhere in there, you have to have some CO2 pressure release. So I'm thinking that it should be some sort of like a nano solenoid. So if you take apart a solenoid valve and actually study it for a long time, you could probably end up making a nano version. Just buy some steel plates and try to get smaller technology. I know you can probably do that because if they can make smaller versions of a larger version of a solenoid valve, then you can make an even smaller version yourself. And what the solenoid is going to do, it's going to suck all the fluid down just like that. It's going to end up right here. Then it's going to end up going all the way up. Then you have some sort of CO2 cartridge hitting somewhere like around back there. That connects separately up to that hole that's in the middle. And then you would have the strands shooting out from here. And don't forget the trigger though. And you also have to have two 9-volt batteries, like one right there and somewhere else. I'm just going to put it right there because I'm running around the room right there. And sorry for the voice, puberty kind of thing. You would understand. So anyways, this 9-volt battery would power that power jack, or not the power jack, sorry, the turbine. So it can spin these nano nozzles. And this 9-volt would power this solenoid. So you can pressure it, or not pressure, and push the button. The fluid goes all the way up, hits these, and they start kind of leaking. Kind of like when you squeeze a hot glue gun when it's nice and ready. But what this is going to do, it's going to also shoot out some CO2. So it's going to make it into like a spray. So it would work like that. With the Spider device, since his wet fluid contains PVA, spirit gum, and different fluids like that, he needs like some sort of heating chamber. But these two web shooters are only great for Comic-Con. They're not great for actual web slinging because if you think about it, they only shoot up to, depending on the pressurized, like if they're pressurized, I want to say like a sum of 15 feet. And with a regular cartridge, you can probably only get 6 rounds. So you'd usually have 11 cartridges in one web shooter. So 6 times 11 would equal 66 rounds in total for one web shooter. But then you would have to constantly change it and be extremely close to like a building to actually swing from it. But these cartridges just use cigarette lighters, like little small ones you can get, and then just empty them out, and there's like a hole in the top. That'd be great. So then you can put like a little nozzle in there, and then acrylic tubing so I can attach, and then just go into there, just like right here. Or just use CO2 cartridges if you just want to be extremely movie accurate. But Since Spider Vice needs a heating chamber, I'm thinking why don't you just use a webpack? Just update the Spider-Man costume design a little bit, but you would have one thing of fluid, F2, then you have another thing of fluid, F1. Then down here, inside of it, you would have copper tubing or copper wiring, and then it would have to be attached to a battery, like a large battery. And if you just use like a regular Jean Sport book bag, you could probably put like a 12 volt in there. Oh, sorry. Like one of those giant flashlight batteries. I would use that if I was him, because both of these need to be heated up in order for it to work. But then, yeah, you could also have some sort of like timer on your web shooter. So it's kind of like a alarm clock. So then, once it reaches down to 0, you have to turn off that battery switch, which should be over here somewhere. So you can let those cool down and then start the timer up again to know, or to let you know when you should turn the battery back on to keep it nice and warm. But this should be steel and have some sort of fireproof mats around it just in case if it ever leaks, you don't want it to light on fire. And somehow on top of here, put some sort of like a one-way valve so you can pressurize these and then put a separate little valve over here so you can actually let this leak out for fluid. But I would suggest just use one, but if you want you can use two. But it's going to be complicated, so I just use one. Just this one right here. And you have to have some sort of fireproof tubing. That's just steel. It goes down to a solenoid valve web shooter with a brass nozzle, which you can probably get those things for about $2 at a local hardware store. Not like these cone-shaped ones that you guys have been using like for the past year and a half. Those things are just a pain in the neck to even watch. And so you would have a regular button, and then over here you'd have a 9 volt attached to the power jack and attached to the button. So you can easily shoot it out. And for this, I estimate that the distance for the web fluid to travel would be around 30 feet. And with that, it's depending on how big your containers are supposed to be, I would just use about 60 rounds, or maybe even 80. So between 60 to 80 rounds for 30 to 60 feet, depending how hard you pressurize it or how much. And there's different ways you can do that too. But I suggest just make that out of steel. My references for that would be I forget the guy's name, whatever, but he's some sort of English guy. He makes all these crazy inventions. He made Assassin's Creed rope launcher. He made a hover bike. He made all these kind of stuff. And I would just use the Iceman tutorial on how I made his Iceman pack. It's the same way how I make this, except you have heating coils